Mud camouflage. In Predator, Dutch and his elite team enter the jungle expecting to face human enemies. Instead, they become the targets of something far more dangerous, an alien hunter that can camouflage itself and track people through their body heat. One by one, Dutch's team is eliminated until he finds himself alone and being hunted through the jungle. While desperately trying to escape, Dutch falls from a waterfall and crawls onto the riverbank, exhausted and completely covered in cold mud. The Predator follows him and gets incredibly close. Dutch freezes. But strangely, the creature doesn't attack. It looks directly at him and keeps searching. That's when Dutch realizes something important. The Predator sees its victims through thermal vision, and the cold mud covering Dutch's body is masking his heat signature. He has accidentally discovered a way to become invisible to the hunter. But Dutch doesn't simply use it to escape. He covers himself completely in mud, prepares primitive weapons and traps, and waits for the Predator to return. The creature had spent the entire movie using camouflage to hunt humans. Now, Dutch had found a way to disappear too. Fake death. Few killers in horror are as intelligent and calculating as Hannibal Lecter, and his escape in The Silence of the Lambs proves exactly why. After manipulating his way into a transfer, Lecter is placed inside a temporary cell under heavy police surveillance. With armed officers everywhere, escaping seems practically impossible. But Hannibal isn't planning a normal escape. When two guards enter his cell to bring him food, Lecter waits for the perfect moment and attacks them. When the other officers finally reach the floor, they discover a horrifying crime scene. One guard is dead, while the other is lying on the floor, covered in blood but somehow still alive. There's no time to waste. Paramedics place the wounded officer on a stretcher, rush him downstairs, and immediately transport him to the hospital. Everything seems normal until the police search the room again. Above the elevator, they discover the body of the guard they thought they had just rescued, and that's when the truth becomes horrifyingly clear. The injured officer inside the ambulance was Hannibal Lecter. He had removed the dead guard's face. The police didn't fail to stop Hannibal from escaping. They carried him out themselves. The Cotton. In Get Out, Chris visits his girlfriend Rose's family for the weekend, but it doesn't take long before he realizes something is seriously wrong inside their house. The family's behavior is strange. The people around him don't seem like themselves. And Rose's mother, Missy, has an especially dangerous ability. Using nothing more than the sound of a spoon stirring inside a teacup, she can hypnotize Chris and send him into the sunken place, leaving him conscious but completely unable to control his body. Eventually, Chris discovers the horrifying truth and wakes up strapped to a chair, waiting to undergo a procedure that could permanently take away control of his own body. Every time the sound of that spoon plays through the television, Chris falls under hypnosis. But then he notices something right beneath his hands. The chair is filled with cotton. Chris quietly tears pieces from the armrests and stuffs them deep into his ears. When Jeremy arrives to take him away, the hypnotic sound begins playing again. Chris lowers his head and pretends it worked. Jeremy gets closer, completely convinced that Chris is unconscious, but this time, Chris can't hear the spoon. He was being held prisoner by the chair, but ironically, the cotton inside that same chair gave him exactly what he needed to escape. Fire alarm. In Aliens, Ripley returns to LV-426, where a human colony has been completely overrun by xenomorphs. Among the survivors is Newt, a young girl who has somehow managed to stay alive while hiding from the creatures. But eventually, Ripley and Newt find themselves trapped inside the colony's medical laboratory with two living facehuggers. They have no weapons, the doors are locked, and the creatures are getting closer. Ripley desperately tries to get the attention of the Marines outside. She pounds against the reinforced glass, but nobody can hear her. Breaking through it isn't working either. Then Ripley looks up and notices something on the ceiling, the fire detector. She grabs a lighter, climbs onto a table, and holds the flame directly beneath the sensor. Seconds later, the fire alarm activates throughout the complex. The Marines immediately realize something is wrong and rush toward the medical lab. They arrive just in time to kill the facehuggers and rescue Ripley and Newt. When screaming couldn't get anyone's attention, Ripley found a much smarter way to make the entire building scream for her. The newspaper trick. No weapons, no superpowers, no combat training. In this scene, survival comes down to pure quick thinking. Trapped inside a train car with a horde of relentless screeching zombies, a group of passengers realizes that brute force won't save them. Strategy will. The breakthrough comes from Sun Kong, Sun Hua's pregnant wife, who picks up on a critical detail. These creatures hunt almost entirely by sight and sound. In darkness, their vision fails them, and any hint of motion instantly draws their attention. Acting fast, she reaches for a nearby water bottle and a scrap of newspaper. Wetting the paper and pressing it against the glass, she uses the water as a makeshift adhesive, sealing off the window like a blackout curtain and cutting the zombies off from any visual trigger. The result is instant. With nothing left to react to, the horde simply freezes on the other side of the door, a resourceful, split-second decision that turns the smartest tool in a horror survival kit. Not a gun, but a clear head. The feedback frequency. In a quiet place, the Abbott family survives in a world where blind alien predators hunt purely by sound. One noise, one mistake, and it's over. For months, they've lived in near-total silence, mourning the loss of their youngest son after a single toy gave away their position. The breakthrough comes from Reagan, the family's deaf daughter, often overlooked and blamed for that tragedy. What no one considers is that her cochlear implant, the device that isolates her from the family's world of silence, might be their only way out. When it malfunctions, it lets out a piercing feedback squeal, a sound Reagan can't hear, but that visibly tortures the creatures. Cornered in the basement as a monster closes in, Reagan realizes the truth. The feedback isn't a defect. It's a weapon. She grabs a microphone wired to the house speakers, presses it against her implant, and cranks the frequency to its peak. The result is immediate. The creature convulses, clutching its head, its thick armor useless against a sound it has no defense for. What everyone once saw as Reagan's weakness becomes the family's greatest advantage, turning her into the hero who finally levels the playing field. The blood test. How do you spot a monster when it can perfectly disguise itself as any one of your friends? In The Thing, a team of researchers is gripped by paranoia after uncovering an alien life form hiding among them, a creature able to flawlessly copy any human it absorbs. Unable to tell who's still human, MacReady falls back on the one tool he has left: cold, logical reasoning. He knows the alien is so deeply wired to protect itself that even a sample of its blood will fight back when threatened. Working off that idea, he puts together a straightforward but ingenious test, drawing blood from every person on the team and pressing a glowing hot wire into each sample. Sample after sample shows nothing, and the pressure builds with every clean result, slowly narrowing down the list of suspects. Then, the wire touches Palmer's blood, and it reacts instantly, shrieking and recoiling as if alive, exposing the creature hiding in plain sight. Armed with nothing but scientific instinct, fire, and raw nerve, MacReady turns suspicion into hard evidence, delivering one of horror's smartest and most tension-filled reveals: the escape plan. Escaping a bunker isn't something you pull off on impulse, especially when you're locked in with someone unstable. It takes planning, patience, and a good dose of creativity. Michelle knows this better than anyone in 10 Cloverfield Lane. Trapped underground with Howard, a paranoid man convinced the surface is unlivable, Michelle discovers a second hidden exit while he's distracted fixing the ventilation system. Getting out, she realizes, will take more than just courage. So she starts building her own protection, an improvised hazmat suit stitched together from plastic sheeting and tape, in case what's waiting outside is exactly as dangerous as Howard claims. When Howard catches on to her plan, everything accelerates. Michelle has to distract him just long enough to slip into the ducts and crawl toward the hatch. Once suited up, she faces the final obstacle, a heavy lock sealing her only way out. Using a compressed air cylinder, she freezes the metal and smashes it apart with brute force. Wearing her makeshift suit, Michelle finally climbs through the hatch and steps into daylight. She's outsmarted her captor and broken free of the bunker, but she's about to discover that the world above might be just as dangerous as the one she left behind. The footprint trick. Trapped in a snow-covered maze with his father, now fully consumed by the Overlook Hotel's madness, Danny has no weapon, no adult to protect him, and nowhere obvious to run. Jack is hunting him with an axe, and the maze's twisting paths offer no real escape route, only dead ends. Danny knows that running blindly will just lead Jack straight to him. So instead of relying on speed alone, he uses the snow itself as a tool. As he moves through the maze, he carefully backtracks over his own footprints, then steps off to the side and presses himself into a hiding spot, letting the trail simply stop in place. The trick works exactly as intended. Jack follows the visible footprints through the maze, but when the tracks abruptly end, he has nothing left to follow. Confused and disoriented in the freezing dark, he wanders further from Danny's real position, giving up ground he can't get back. While Jack stumbles deeper into the maze, chasing a trail that leads nowhere, Danny doubles back and escapes to safety with his mother. A simple move born of a child's clear thinking, and it's enough to outsmart a grown man with an axe. Paint trick. How do you prove someone is standing right in front of you when nobody else can see them? After escaping her violent husband Adrian, Cecilia learns that he has supposedly taken his own life, but strange things begin happening around her. Objects move on their own, doors open without explanation, and Cecilia becomes convinced that Adrian has somehow found a way to become invisible. The problem is that nobody believes her. One night, while searching the house, Cecilia notices something strange above her and climbs into the attic. There, she finds exactly what she feared, evidence that someone has secretly been watching her. Then, she hears movement. Cecilia knows the invisible intruder is nearby, but she has no idea exactly where he's standing. So she grabs a can of paint and throws it into the empty space in front of her. And suddenly, a human figure appears. The paint splashes across the invisible man's head and body, temporarily revealing his exact position. His technology might be able to hide him from the human eye, but it can't stop paint from sticking to the suit. And now I want to know, which of these decisions do you think was the smartest? Some of them required careful planning, while others were brilliant ideas made in just a few seconds when one wrong move could mean death. Let me know your pick in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, leave a like and subscribe for more. I'll see you in the next one.